Good evening to all you cool kids out there. Hello, it is Monday evening. We are here with a friend tonight. We have George O'Connor in the house. So tonight we're going to do a little chat and pals and chat, comics and pals and chats. How about that, everyone? I think that sounds nice. Yeah, it was really cool. George and I were talking, I think last week, because he's
Yep.
got his Kickstarter running, and we have the Alchemist of Aurelian number 1 through 4 going on, and we were like, hey, why don't we hop on together? And I was like, that sounds like an awesome idea because I love when I get to hang out with George and chat. So I said, let's do it. So here we are together on a Monday night, and we're going to talk about our campaigns. George, how are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for letting me crash your Monday night stream. I appreciate it.
Oh, well,
And yeah,
it's
usually when
pleasure's all
we
mine.
when we what usually when we chat, it's like very focused. So get a chance to actually talk without without trying to solve some crisis of some sort. So yeah, I'm very excited to do this.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I am too. It'll be nice to, just hang out for a little bit and talk about what we've got going on.
Yeah.
And speaking of what we've got going on, George, Vampires on Mars, one
Yes.
of the best things to come out this year, I think, really.
I hope so.
If I had to give a guess, yeah. You've been working on this for quite a while.
Yeah, yeah. In the near history of it is about a year and a half ago. Um, Dropping a line to artist and the co-creator Fernando Pinto about pitching him the idea and the story and seeing if he'd be interested in it. We had worked together on a short for a anthology I was a part of, and he was absolutely wonderful to work with, and I was looking for a reason to work with him again. And he had posted some pages on Twitter, kind of a manga inspired version of his art, and he said it was for a pitch that didn't go anywhere, but that he would love to do a story in that style, but nobody ever wanted to do that type of thing. And I looked at it, I was like, that's the exact style I was looking for Vampires on Mars. And so I dropped them a line and said, hey, that thing you think nobody wants you to do, that's exactly what I want you to do. Um, and we started working on it, and it turned out beautifully. There's a reason Fernando's always working, and there's a reason why a lot of people work with him over and over and over again. Um, Beyond being talented, he is a pros pro, fantastic guy to work with. Absolute wonderful collaborator, and it was a joy working with him on Vampires on Mars and seeing how his ability to go from the sci-fi to the horror to the humor to the quieter, more character moments, kind of one shots, just effortlessly moved between all of them. And he just elevated the whole thing from beginning to end. So that like I said, and then also from that Toddler Apocalypse anthology, which I can admit now because it's about 2 years since we launched it. It was like so much of it was just mercenary and selfless or selfish. Um, on Twitter, I would see all these amazing artists and colorists, letters, all this stuff of like, I want to work with all of these people. How the hell do I pull that off? And the answer is anthologies. Being able to work with a bunch of people, 8 pages, which is what these stories were, are a lot easier to get into somebody's schedule than 80 pages. And so I got to work, like I said, work with about a dozen different people that I've just admired for a while. And so, along with Fernando, Ellie Wright, the colorist, she also did our hardcover. She colored that. Jill Mulvey drew it. Ellie colored it. She also did one of the interior stories with artist and writer Clay McCormick. And again, she was a dream to work with. And then Justin Birch was our letterer, and he was our only letterer. And the ability that he had to take 6 different stories, 6 different art styles, coloring palettes, and really smooth it all out into one seamless book. It was up close magic. Letterers are up close magic.
Oh,
Um,
Yeah, I
And
got
yeah,
to work with a letterer on an anthology I did, and wow, they
yeah.
are amazing.
Um, and so at the end of Toddler Apocalypse, I kind of had this dream team of people I wanted to work with again. And luckily, I guess it was, technically speaking, New York Comic Con 22. Everybody was actually in the Javits Center at the same time. And so I got to that. I got to find the photo of Fernando and I actually signing the contracts.
Oh,
And then meeting Ellie in person for the first time. She's from Ireland, but she was in for the show. And meeting Justin Birch in person. And getting to all in one room. So, like I said, that's the 2-year story. The longer version that I'll try and keep shorter is it was born from a trip from Baltimore Comic Con back home, and just trying to kill 8 hours of a drive. And somewhere along just the BSing with the people I was with, I had said, yeah, I'd turn into a vampire if that meant I could be alive for all the cool stuff that NASA's going to find, in the coming decades, because I'm a space nerd. And from that line, pretty quickly we put together like the mile markers of a story that sounded really fun and ridiculous, and merged a bunch of things that I loved. And so, like I said, very short, it's like, oh man, I know what this story is, the A to B to C part of it. And it's been, it's been sitting on my laptop waiting for, the right artist, patiently waiting, about 9-10 years for it.
wow.
And then, yeah. And so now it's out right now over on Kickstarter. Like you, we are in the final days. I think technically we've got 4 days left. Friday midnight. I'm a Friday midnight ender for whatever reason. And we're looking to clear like the last, I don't know, 10%, something like that. I think we're a little less than 10%. So, work to do. But I'd mentioned this morning. This is the hardest Kickstarter I've worked on, like the most amount of thought and energy and putting into it. But it's also maybe the one that I've gotten the most out of as well, as far as support. I mean, yeah, the financial support is huge. But seeing the number of people who are coming out to tweet, retweet, post on wherever they go. And so many of them, like on a borderline daily basis, looking to help me out. And the group that we're a part of, absolutely threw me a lifeline a couple weeks ago when we had our monthly get together. And and you and I were both kind of talking how we were sitting on the ledge as we were a week or so into our campaigns, and just the ability of that group to, like, okay, we're gonna let you put the boo-boo face on, and we're gonna let you panic for a few minutes, but then we're gonna get to work. I can't thank them enough, and I can't thank you, as you are part of that group, of really kind of turning around a panic moment into okay, now we've got a plan and we're gonna get to work. So I will admit, I'm sorry. 5 minutes ago I said it'd be a short story, and I've monologued for that long. Hi everybody, I'm George.
Yeah, but that's the great thing, George. You're such a wonderful storyteller. I mean, we saw it in Charlie's Spot, which is the series you had kind of out before this, and with Toddler Apocalypse. I think they kind of were concurrent. Forgive me if I'm getting the timeline mixed up,
No.
but yeah, like that series was so creative in its like magical realism, and now you're really going to the end of the scale with this sci-fi, and you're always coming up with these really creative, fun ideas that are there's just these worlds that you want to really get into and get to know everyone. And I'm very emotionally invested in the taco bar. George, tell me about the taco bar. That's the storyline I'm here for.
One, thank you. I truly appreciate. I have appreciated our friendship and your support for years, which is another reason I wanted to crash this and hang out with you. So, with the taco bar is, and this is going to sound weird, giving myself permission to be funny in a comic book, which I know kind of sounds weird, but it this whole Vampires on Mars thing, it started as a sci-fi horror kind of mashup, but there was a B movie element that, like, if you're going to call it Vampires on Mars, there's a borderline expectation of what the vibe is going to be or should be. So I try to remember and trying to also think of my own reading and enjoyment of something. Like, something can be heavy, something can be dark, something can be scary, but if it's also funny, if there's some humor, I know that is a hook for me, and eases my way into a book and ramps me up to want to see where everything is going to go. So it was like I said, it was the reminder to just, like, go for it, and if it makes you laugh, then chances are it'll make somebody else laugh. So the fact that you are now emotionally invested into whether or not our billionaire's taco bar remains open for his space engineers or not, like, it's like, okay, I guess maybe it worked. Yeah, but the in the story of it, we've got a billionaire who wants to, for his own ego, send people to Mars and back, because that's where we live these days. And so I tried to think of, well, what is the most petty way, an out of touch billionaire would try and motivate his people, and taking away the free stuff and taking away the taco bar is definitely, I think, the pettiness of the type of person we're talking about here.
Definitely. Yeah, you definitely get the sense of this billionaire guy. From what I've seen, he's a little whimsical, like he's kind of not in touch with reality, but in this sort of more charming way than your typical billionaire, where he's just in a fantasy la la world, and he just wants to do the thing, and it's fun that way, more so than your typical, like, I'm an egomaniac. It seems like your billionaire, he's less the egomaniac and more just, this sounds like fun, let's go.
Yeah, I think at some level you lose touch with, like, what reality is, and he is more interested in his own ego and his ranking on the billionaire list than actually succeeding. The success is just a vehicle for the love that he can probably never actually fill in his heart, no matter how rich they get, which of course is a completely new idea that is not inspired by anybody or anything in our world right now.
Absolutely. This is a totally original thing.
And yeah, it was just just trying to keep in mind some of the books that I've really been enjoying recently, and that have kind of reminded me of what I've been responding to, is things that can mash stuff up, that can take a sci-fi idea and put a riff on it, or take a sci-fi idea and then you realize, you're like, oh, they've wrapped something real, they've wrapped something universal and human in something sci-fi, in something horror, or with Charlie Spot, in something magical, and that's as a creator, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this as well. For me, that's where I'm trying to level up, is can I start adding more humanity to the entertainment part of the story?
Absolutely. But the saying is, like, it's in fantasy and sci-fi where we really find our true selves, where it kind of shines that light on what it means to really be human.
Yeah. What type of stuff when I thank you very much for letting me babble, but I mean, I've also I have 1,000,001 creator questions for you. I mean, for Alchemist, I want to know basically everything of how did we get here. Your style is incredibly unique. and it's full of energy. And I want to know, I want to know who inspired you to begin with. I want to know what's inspiring you now, and kind of the elements that came together for Alchemist to be what it is to
I
its
want to
fourth
know.
issue.
Yeah. So it's funny because the Alchemist of Aurelia never was really supposed to get to this point. Actually, it
No?
was no. I did it as a pilot comic for a contest. There we go. So
Yeah.
there she is. Yeah, I did it as I did the first issue as this, kind of one-off idea that I had for a Shonen Jump contest on their manga app, and I think that was back in 2019. And I put it out there, and it didn't do anything. I didn't expect it to, but it was fun. And I did always want to do a series that was set in like Turkish Byzantine Empire kind of setting. So this was kind of scratching that itch. I just love to make comics where it's in a time period or a place that I really love. So then it gives me an excuse to just keep drawing those things. So this is like, well, what if everyone just lived in the Hagia Sophia, which is my favorite building of all time? What if that was just everything? So I did that, and then I brought it to Kickstarter kind of on a dare/challenge from our comic group, and it did really well. And people were like, "Oh, this was great, Melissa. When's the next one coming out? When's chapter 2?" And I'm like, "Oh." So I took some time to write a full story. I actually Isa and Raz were actually from another comic idea that I had come up with years ago that didn't have enough legs to stand on its own. And when I was thinking of how to extend Nurie's story, I'm like, she needs a foil. She's this sheltered bookworm. She needs someone to bounce off of. Well, Isa was perfect for that. She already kind of had the same aesthetic because it was like a desert setting comic. So I'm like, it's kind of the same thing. I can tweak some things and make her fit in better. And Isa's just all loud and boisterous and charges in first and, isn't bothered by an explosion. She just charges right in. So it kind of ended up being perfect that we could align these two stories up and give them similar motivations for going after our villains. So with Nuria, she's trying to save her home from this really nasty witch called Yati the World Eater. And for Isa, it's that her girlfriend was kidnapped by Yati and one of her familiars, the dervish. So she's got beef with Yati. And she's like, well, I'm going after her anyway. Like, let's just go. And Raz is just there to keep them both alive because he's the only one who's level-headed enough and experienced enough with the world to be like, no, like we're not going to do that. We're going to do this the smart way.
That's awesome. So you talked about it was the Byzantine, right? Is that what you?
Yeah, the Byzantine Empire into the Ottoman Empire. I love it all.
What was what hooked you about that?
It was in my first art history class in college, and I really credit. I had a great professor. Unfortunately, she passed last year, but she just had a way of getting you to love art history and to find something interesting about everything. And when we got to the end of that first course, it ended in the Byzantine Empire, and I had never heard anything about it really. Like I kind of knew vaguely it existed somewhere. And then when I saw like the art and the architecture and how that inspired the Ottomans when they conquered and they took all that what the Byzantines had built and implemented it into their architecture, which has made Turkish architecture in particular very unique in comparison to that region of the world. It just enchanted me. It's just so beautiful and so it's like nothing else on this earth, it's just so unique and beautiful, and I love it. And just the engineering that had to go into putting some of these buildings together in a time where it was like 700 AD or something, or 500 AD, and they're like, hey, like we can do all this math to make this building work correctly. And I mean, the dome of the Hagia Sophia, I think, only collapsed once because of an earthquake in like 900 or something, or 800. I should have studied up on my dates because I'm a little rusty. But ever since then, that dome has stood. So it just is a testament to the ingenuity and the brilliance of people in any era. And that's
Yeah.
the stuff I get really nerdy about.
Because it is so outside of our own scope and lived experience, right? Like to build something, we have all of these huge mechanical devices, and without them, we just can't, you know, understand the A to B to C. But like you said, it stood for centuries.
Yeah. And I can't do
There
math.
you
So
are.
the fact that they could do math
Right.
back then, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
added bonus, you know? So that was a lot of what drove me to make this story, and also just wanting to do a fantasy adventure story. I just love fantasy adventure. I love the idea of just traveling around places and going on a journey. But I've never been a big fan of like medieval times as a setting because everything
Hmm.
is medieval times. Every
Right.
D&D campaign is medieval times. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's nice to get some variety.
Yeah.
So taking all those things and putting them together and coming up with this adventure in this really fascinating world that I'm kind of proud of myself for putting together, if I can say
Hell
that.
yeah.
Um, it just makes me so excited and pumped to work on this series. I always love coming back to it. I rotate with my other series, and I'm always excited to get back to this one and to play around in this world and to tell more of the story. It's a great time.
I yeah, again, the art just jumps up. It's got so much life. I'm thinking of this middle panel, just this headshot right there.
Oh yeah.
It's wonderful. Art Artistic wise, would you say this is your style kind of put into kind of like that? Like, are you trying to take your art style to fit into the Byzantine Empire? Or is like this is your style, and whether it was the Ottoman Empire or New Jersey in, 2008, it would kind of have the same vibe and energy.
Yeah, I think with this one I go a little more fantastical,
Yeah.
compared to some other things I've done in the past. So, like with Black Ball, it's set in a very historically grounded 1920s that happens to have magic. Coincidentally, sometimes in New Jersey, but mostly New York. And with that one, I'm very specific about like it has to look exactly like it did back then, or someone's gonna call me out. So I feel like with that, I'm a little more grounded. But with this, I'm a little more free to play around with it because it's a
Yeah.
fantasy world that's just taking the basic principles of the architectural style. And then, the characters, that's all me, of course. That's me. Maybe even pushing a little farther. Definitely each issue, I'm always trying to improve on characters' body language and expressions and getting their personalities out. I
Yeah.
talked in a newsletter recently about the one villain who's introduced in this issue, Barty, the desert jackal. And originally
Hmm.
she was going to be, kind of a bipedal figure, kind of moving around like a human, but having those jackal features. And then she would shapeshift around. And then I read an article about how it's cowardly to have a shapeshifter that has a human form if they're not a human to start out with. So I'm like, I'm not a
Hmm.
coward. So I right. So I decided to make her more dog-like. So I have this whole scene where she and one of the other characters are having an important conversation. She's not at all interested. She's a jackal. She's a dog. So she's rolling on the floor and like, whatever. Like I don't
That's
care what's
awesome.
happening. I just got to do this because I'm supposed to. But
That's yeah. I mean, that's the awesome character and creativity that
yeah, so
makes something that takes what might have been maybe a more standard conversation scene, but like giving it life and filling in the world, you know while taking care of moving the story forward,
exactly.
getting more bang for your buck for each scene. That's awesome.
And using it as a chance to show not only the characters' personalities, but what they think of each other. Because, and
Yeah.
certain things, if a character is not fully engaged, well, that tells you, what they think of that other character they're talking to.
Yep. Yeah.
So definitely trying to find those opportunities because that really pushes the visual storytelling. And that's something I'm always, very concerned about keeping fresh and exciting because if I wasn't going to do all that, I might as well just have it all be text. So
Right.
if I have the visuals, it's important to use them effectively. And that's the stuff I love because when you pull it off like that, it's there's no better feeling. It's like, yes,
That is
nailed it.
that that is the magic of comics as a visual medium. I was just thinking about this the other day. The first comic that I wrote and created. I think God, there was so much text in it. I started making comics when I got back into them as an adult. So this would have been around 2010, and Brian Michael Bendis was one of the guys at that point. And so I got into him, and the man knows how to write, and the man writes. And so I think there was a part of me, and also coming from the screenwriting world, of like, oh yeah. So you put in a lot of dialogue. Comics are dialogue. And then realizing like, no, comics are not dialogue. I think bringing comics to a convention and trying to cold sell them, that was a fantastic learning experience where it's like, oh no, this is a visual medium first. If you want to get somebody to stop at your table and look at your books, the cover is the first thing.
Yep.
Then maybe your pitch, right? Like that 1-2 sentence thing. If the pitch works, they're going to start flipping through the book. And I realized they're flipping through the book so fast. They're not reading anything. They're trying to see if the visuals jump out and connect with them. And so, in the 14 years of making this stuff, to the first book to the last book, the amount of dialogue there is not in this anymore to make sure that the artists have the room to tell the story and to hook that reader. Was, like I said, very big learning experience. And so now, of the writers that I look at as kind of a North Star, I think of Jeff Lemire, who one does so many different things and he does them well. And I gotta think his like words per panel count has to be some of the lowest in there, but every word is the right word for that moment, for that character, for that beat. And so that's my challenge, where I'm trying to make sure that if I'm going to cover up the art, and good Lord, I know this, you as the artist are going to spend, what do you think, 5-10 times longer on the page than the writer,
Oh yeah.
writing that page. The colorist less, but still probably more. If I'm going to cover up this beautiful art, this art that I know is actually the gateway in, it better be worth it. So trying to get succinct, the irony again as I monologue, trying to be succinct, trying to make sure every word has the right punch, and to make sure it's the right word, right? Thesaurus.com and I go, way back on anything that I write with. It is open right next to me.
Oh gosh, and I mean,
Wait,
if you look at our script drafts, I mean, anyone would see that all the words that get crossed out or sentences that get dropped. I mean,
Yep.
for this, I was just working on a scene the other day, and I had to cut out like half the sentences because like I don't need this. I can just show this, or this is unnecessary. They don't need to say
Yeah.
this. I can get rid of. They don't need to repeat the name. They know who they are. So it's definitely a fine balance of the words and the images, and having enough words and having the most effective imagery working together to really get the story across.
Yeah. Again, that's the alchemy of comics that I love, that I truly admire. And when it's pulled off, and it's pulled off well, man, it is so inspiring. So inspiring. what's your process for, are you giving yourself a full script? Are you giving yourself beat sheets?
It's funny because this was
How do
the
you
first.
get here?
Yeah, this was the first time I actually wrote a proper script for one of my own works,
Hmm.
because I got so excited about the script and nailing the beats like that. I was getting ahead of
Yeah.
my thumbnails because usually I thumbnail and script at the same time so I can do the layout and I
Oh,
can
okay.
paste the. But I was just getting too excited and I kept running ahead of the thumbnails. I'm like, I'm just gonna write it all down, whatever. so so it was a little different this time. My process, it kind of evolves each go around. But yeah, usually I'll have a grid and I'll have the spread of the pages and I have the text on the side, and I'll kind of go through and try to make sure I'm marrying those visuals and speech or text correctly.
Yeah.
Um, and then something I've been doing the last couple of years also is I've learned to draw digitally. So I all my
Hmm.
color illustrations are still 100% traditional. I pencil, ink, and color all by hand. But for the comic pages and working in black and white has really facilitated this. I started going digital, and this was the first time I didn't even start on paper. So issue 3, I still
Hmm.
penciled by hand, and now I've gone completely onto the tablet. I do a rough slayer to get all the forms plotted out and the backgrounds a little bit. Pencils on top to really put in all the details and flesh
Hmm.
out the characters and put in the backgrounds. Sometimes I'll do additional layers for other objects or put backgrounds on separate layers, all the fun stuff you can do with the digital file, and then inks and tones on top. I've been doing them at the same time, which has been throwing me off because then it's like, oh, it takes forever to ink this page, but it's because I'm screen toning and putting in all the effects at the same time. So it's really not taking me any
Okay.
longer to ink. I'm just silly.
So like this top left panel, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing all of those steps at once.
Yeah, pretty much. So I've been penciling on my other tablet that I can carry around with me, and then I'll ink on my desktop because it's a little more stable. And my
Yeah.
game, I shake all over the place. I'm just flailing about through life, you know. Um, so yeah, but yeah, I'll pretty much take the pencil page and then I'll go and then that panel I did all the inking and then I did the background, which was a tone scraping effect. And
Hmm.
then Isa's hair is a gradient that I layer in under the inks, and then her screen tones. So in this one, she's got 2 different ones, but usually she's rocking 3. Uh, and yeah, so that's about how each panel goes. And then once the whole page is toned, I actually bring it into Infinity Designer to do the lettering because I haven't figured out Clip Studio's lettering yet. I know
Hmm.
everyone says it's better. I understand it's better. Just let me do my thing. I'm just going to do it this way for a hot minute until I can figure it out.
We're all on our own journey.
Exactly, exactly. Now, I had someone come at me in a forum like, "Well, why do you letter it in Affinity? You could do it in Clip." And I'm like, because I don't know. I'm very tired. I'm sorry."
I mean, that's a good point. Like we love this stuff. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
we don't spend the time, the money, the energy to make this, without loving it. We get inspired by what we read, and it's like, and we want to play in that sandbox.
Yeah.
But we are also juggling, 9 to 5s and, family and, trying to be present, with them. Like, I keep saying, like, I have a wife that I love very much. I have a son who is a great hang. I like hanging out with them. So if I'm going to take time away from them, the thing I'm going to be doing has got to be important. you
Mm-hmm.
know um Maybe not, global importance, but, in my world, in our world, like if this is gonna take our time and energy, it has to come from a place of passion because that's the only thing we can control.
Yeah, absolutely. And comics, and I'm sure you find this too. it's the one thing where I sit down and everything feels okay. Like I know what I'm doing. Even if I come up against something hard, I know I'll be able to figure it out. And it's just my happy place. Like I
Mm.
can sit down and go. I imagine it's similar for you, where you can just sit down with a script, and even if you have writer's block, you can just you'll figure it out.
It understanding how my brain works and figuring out a system that works with it has been huge, and I haven't perfected it. You know, you know, doubt will still creep in, and you call a book Vampires on Mars. I spend half my time going like, is anybody else going to think this is, interesting, funny, whatever. Um, but real, some of the things I've done is like basically kind of like compartmentalize the process. Where giving myself permission, like the first draft, like just go, just dump, put the ideas down, write the dialogue. If you don't have, if you're writing a line of dialogue and it's not perfect, move on. Don't kill momentum by trying to work one line over and over and over again. Get the idea down, because editor George will come in later, and his first draft George, his only job is to get it over the finish line. To get it over the finish line properly and as fast as possible. And then we're going to hand it over to the editor, and the editor will go through and check for spelling, double check the lines, kind of all that systematic stuff. And at some point, the dialogue coach will come in, and his only job is to look at each line of dialogue and make sure it's as tight and it's as as right and aimed properly as possible. And realizing like not all of this has to happen on the first draft was a huge breakthrough, and made everything so much easier, faster, and less stressful, because I kind of like your point, you don't need to solve it now. That you've got other other parts of the brain will come in and tighten it all up. I also have the joy of working with another creator, another collaborator. And maybe we were talking about cowardice earlier. Maybe that's cowardice on my part. But I will also tell you, like, my stick figures don't look like stick figures, so it might also just be I'm not at that level yet. But one of the things I love about comics is the collaborative nature of it. I love, having an idea, pitching it to Fernando or anybody, and seeing how they add to it, how they bring their experiences, their talents, their background, their ideas, their sense of humor, and it becomes bigger. That's absolutely 100% my favorite part of creating anything, whether it's comics or I'm still a working musician, insofar as like I've got a band and we play out often, and are working on new music and working together, and just realizing how, like, I think I'm an introvert, except I'm a creative extrovert. I get a ton of energy from other creative people and working and talking with other creative people. And it's absolutely the best. It's that, again, that alchemy of watching an idea just grow and grow and everybody bringing something to it. I know you have recently started writing for a project you're not drawing.
I have.
How? Yeah. So, it's called Battle Panda.
Yes, it's so
And
much fun.
how has that been? Again, I say just writing, but that is not a negative or anything like it. But at some point, you handed the script off.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's been so fun. It's such a great way to make something, to do it with other people. Oh, we just finished the script for Battle Panda 3. And there's just something so wonderful about how we started with draft one, and we've polished it over and over again, and we pass it around, and each time we're ironing out the issues, and it just gets more polished and more built up. And oh, it's there's just something about it that is so wonderful and so fulfilling in a different way from how my own work is fulfilling. Oh
Yeah.
man, working by yourself is overrated, I have to say now, because I just love that I can put a script together, and then I get to pass around with other people, or I get a script back and I get to take it and find, the places where, oh, well, what if we tried this here? Let's try to throw this in. And I have been having such a blast. I mean, Farhan is so fantastic to work with. We have a great editor, Nicole. She's also fantastic, and she has to put up with my spelling, so
Ah,
extra kudos to her. And then, of course, we have a great team of artists and a colorist, and we have a letterer. And seeing back in Battle Panda 2, which was the first time I jumped on as a co writer, seeing how the script then became the artwork was also so gratifying.
mm.
Maybe because I didn't have to suffer through the things I wrote, and someone more competent than me was able to take them on. Because I write some things and I'm like, why did I write this? I don't want to draw this. Oh, this is terrible. Um, but yeah, it's been a blast. I love it. I love working as a co-writer. I would like to do it some more. So if anyone out there needs a writer,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's definitely something I'm looking into. I never thought of myself as a writer. I always thought of myself as more of an artist. And then when Farhan was like, "Well, your writing is really grabbed me, so I knew I wanted to have you on board." I was like, "Oh, well, that's very
That's
nice. I
awesome.
never thought of that." Oh, so I was just so like flabbergasted. I was like, I couldn't believe someone had looked at my writing and was like, "Yes, I want you for your writing." I'm like, what? So
That
that was like,
that's awesome. So would do you until that moment, did you feel like you were writing just so you could draw? Like was it the gateway to the thing that you thought you wanted to do?
oh, that's an interesting question. I always felt that for me, writing and art were so intertwined and
Mm,
kind of couldn't be taken apart. And then this process of taking them apart a little more, I think it's made me a better writer, definitely, and maybe even a bit more of a better artist. Just kind of understanding the process of how to break something down more effectively into a
yeah,
script instead of my chaotic um, process of putting things together. So having gone through a more orderly step by step process of putting a book together, I think has improved everything all around for me. But definitely more as a writer, and yeah, made me start thinking like, yeah, maybe I am a writer and an artist, not
yeah.
writer artist or just creator. Like, oh, it's an interesting thought. So I've been looking more into to writing just on its own.
And so which is one fantastic, and two, please keep going. Like I said, beyond a friend, I'm also a fan. So I would love to see you, wherever your muse takes you. I want to go with you. And again, like especially, at this level where like it's got to be the passion driving everything, because that again, that's the only thing we can control. And if we're going to spend our time with it, you know, um, hopefully it's fulfilling something, at just the ground level. And as you were talking, I was also really happy for you in that you got to experience my favorite part of making a comic book, which is getting the emails of new pages.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
that is absolutely like it is automatically the best part of my day whenever Fernando would send new pages, or Ellie would send the colors, or Justin would send the letters, and it's becoming real step by step. Absolutely by far best part of the day. Versus where I don't know. Well, walk me through when you finish. When you finish one of your pages. Is there? I don't know. I know on my end, if there's not so much joy like right off the bat, it's more like, oh, thank God that's done. and I don't hate it, and I don't hate myself. So let's move, and like that's a win.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, I definitely get a lot of that. Like, oh, this wasn't a disaster, and I can still accept who I am as a human being. Um, there's if it's a page like that I've drawn, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, that was awesome. I can't wait to do more. And I just get like this almost hoarder mentality of I want to have amassed more and more finished pages. Maybe it's to get the
yeah,
experience out of it. But yeah, it's like sometimes I just go and open the folder and be like, oh, these are all the pages I have done. And you just kind of sit back and take it in because it's not physical because it's on my computer, but it's a almost in a way like a physical manifestation, a proof that yes, I've this is the result of the work. It exists and it's here.
yeah.
And it just drives me to want to keep doing more and more and like see how the next page is going to look and what is the next panel going to look like and this is how I became a workaholic. I'm not an alcoholic yet. Oh my god. Just tired, everyone. But yeah, this is definitely how I became a workaholic because it's so you almost get a high off of when you finish a piece or you finish a page or you finish writing that script and you're like, what's the next one gonna be? What am I gonna do next? I'm so excited to find out.
Um, as a writer artist, I'm just curious about jumping into your brain and your eyes and how you see things. Um, can you surprise yourself as you're drawing? Like I'm assuming, like when you get to a panel, you have something in your mind of what this panel is going to look like. When you sit down to draw it, is it that's exactly what I thought, or is there I didn't know it was going to go that way? Like sometimes when you write a scene, you think, oh, this is what the scene's going to be about, and these are going to be kind of like the beats. And as you start typing, sometimes it just goes off on its own, or a new line pops into your head that changes the dynamics. And so you've written it, and it's like, well, this is the scene I was planning on writing, but this is not how I planned to write it. Is there a similar experience as you're drawing the panel and the page?
Yes, I'll say I'm gratefully at a point in my artistic career where it's more so it turns out differently from how I envisioned it, but like almost better, or I still like it, Definitely still have those moments of it turned out differently and oh God, what have I done? This is terrible. This is not at all what I wanted. But that happens less and less now because, I've got the experience and my art has gotten better. But I think you need to give yourself that freedom. A lot of times the first thought I had of a scene, no matter how much I think, oh, this is going to be awesome, it's not necessarily the best way to handle that scene. And, you need to let it kind of incubate and really think through, is this the way that makes the most sense to get the idea across? And then, a lot of times after that refinement, yeah, it's a lot different from how I maybe first envisioned it, but it's a lot better for it. Is it the same for you, George, when you're sitting down to write, maybe, from draft one to draft 3, 4, however many, that you end up kind of getting to that spot?
Yeah, it's so I have an advertising copy background. Like that's how I pay the mortgage. And one of my early mentors gave me the line, first say it straight, then say it great. So, so just get the idea down on paper, get what you need, what needs to be said, just get it down. Because then once it's down, you know what you're trying to say, and then you can shape it and workshop it and try and make it, sound better, sound prettier, sound heavier, and that can kind of reshape how scenes are going to go. And like I said, I still feel like I'm apologizing to my first artist for writing so many words into our early scripts, that there's always a pass going through where it's like, how can I cut? How can I cut? How can I cut? especially when the art comes in, and all right, how much is already being said on the art, so can I either cut or can I change what's being said to kind of turn it into more. And then I was thinking about this earlier, working with Justin on the letters. And again, I think this is the copywriting background where I'll work with my my partners, the art directors, designers, and I'll send them copy. But if it doesn't look right in the layout, then okay, let's edit this and make sure it looks right, it fits, all that stuff. And so I told Justin's like, look, if you're laying this stuff out and it just doesn't look good, or like, look, man, if you can take out 3 words in this bubble, it'll look better. Let me know, and I will change the words so it looks better. And he told me, it's like, no one's ever basically offered to edit so it looks prettier on the page. But I've also realized individual words I really don't care about. Concepts I will fight to the death for, but individual words, they can be tweaked. Like I said, at thesaurus.com, it's not a lie. When I'm writing, it's open and it's there. So like I said, I try and go into every scene with an idea of what the job is supposed to do. And a lot of times, they're text message. I have text messages on my phone or just on my computer of rough ideas, rough dialogue ideas. And then, so I know where I want to go. I know where I'm starting. I know where I want to go. And then just riff from there. And, again, you hope you get it. But, again, knowing like 3 different editors, my internal editors are going to come by. And that's before I send it to my actual editor, James, who is freaking a good. Look, if there are any creatives listening to this right now, I'm telling you, get a good editor. They absolutely are your best friend. They will keep you on target. They will let you know when it's not making sense outside of your own brain, because inside everything is perfect. It's when it touches air, that's when things get interesting. But yeah, James has been so valuable, from helping craft the story to outlining to dialogue, and then I can commiserate as well. My spelling is atrocious.
Right.
So
spelling is hard.
It's so hard.
It's so
Why is
hard.
it so hard? But yeah, so for just a few minutes, like, first of all, thank you so much for letting me crash and just talking creativity. It is one of my favorite things to do, and I'm so glad I got to do it with you. So just to be slightly mercenary at the moment, we're both working our asses off on these projects. So let the people know where you're at for Alchemist.
Yes, you can find our campaign at my very easy to remember URL, alchemistcomic.melissajmassey.com. That'll get you there. That'll take you right to this Kickstarter page where you can jump in. And we have some fun things going on. We are under $60 off from the race to 1K. We'll talk about this. Like, I don't remember what order things are in. The race to 1K. So when you become a backer, you will get access to a fun little side story about Nuria and Isa having a race. You get to cheer for whoever you want to win by voting in our backer-only poll. And whichever racer wins, by the time we get to the 1K mark, those are the rewards that we will unlock. So on Nuria's side, we have a lovely bookmark and a keychain charm. And on Isa's side, we have a bookmark with her on it and a sticker pack with her brothers. So yeah, make sure you're cheering for who you want to win. Because when we hit 1K, someone's going to win and we're going to unlock those rewards.
Yeah. And for anybody who might be new to it, you can see what I selected, because I've been with Alchemist since the beginning. But you also do
Mhm.
make it real easy for people to catch up, right? If this is the first time that they're coming
Absolutely.
across it.
Yeah, so if you prefer to read digitally, I have a digital pack. I also have a physical catch-up pack to get all 4 books. And if you're someone who maybe went away for a bit and you're coming back, just shoot me a message. If you're missing like number 3, we'll work something out for you. I actually had a backer who was missing some select issues. I'm like, well, let's make it work. So I'm happy to do
Yeah.
a la carte options for you. No problem at all.
And then you mentioned it earlier, but there's this Cool Kids bundle that if I'm just talking to people directly. If you dig MJ and you want to see what she's all about, she has Alchemist, but she also has a second book series called Black Ball. I am a supporter of that one as well. It is, it's wonderful. I dig it. Every launch I'm going to be there. You can catch up on both of those series with this Cool Kids bundle. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's also 4 issues of Black Ball, and issue 3 is a double issue that's like 60 some pages, and now is print perfect bound. The original copy was
Nice.
stapled. So if you have one of those, that's a collector's item now because I'm not producing that version anymore. But yeah, so it's a very lovely, thick little book. So yeah, lots of story there to catch up on, and we'll be rolling into issue 5 sometime this fall. I haven't exactly figured out my release schedule, but yeah, we will keep rolling along with that. So if you are looking for a 1920s magical murder mystery, step on in and check it out.
Yeah, and then also just want to, the drawing the cover.
Oh yes.
That as someone who has basically gone variant cover shopping, that is incredibly reasonable.
And,
So
and you get some books too with it. Oh, you
yeah,
get a book. You get number 4.
yeah,
And yeah, and actually I have, so I can show right now.
yeah.
Because I think John and Ryan are still, they're still fighting over this cover. I don't think either of them have told me who is getting it. But so you'll get a really nice, lovely, it's 11 by 17. Yeah, I know what paper sizes are. Nice 11 by 17. This was done in markers with some airbrushing. So you could have one of these, and I'll send you the original too of your
That's
cover
awesome.
that I bought for you. So yeah, hop on board.
So that's actually a good distinction right there. The covers you'll do traditionally.
Absolutely, yeah.
Beautiful.
This is my favorite way to work. I still love my markers. I know Ryan keeps saying, Ryan Crowbuff, a good pal of ours, keeps saying like, no, so you can learn digital and then you'll do it all the time. And I'm like, no, Ryan, I don't think I can learn this. I love my markers too much. I'll have to pry them out of my cold dead hands. Only because I just love the medium so much. I just love working on paper. There's something about the physical application of color on a surface and blending things together, and I don't know. It sounds weird putting it out loud, but in my head it makes sense.
Absolutely. And then for anybody else that's interested in mine, so Vampires on Mars, we are ending this Friday at midnight. Again, it's our sci-fi dark comedy about 300-year-old vampire battling a vapid billionaire, volatile astronauts, and chaotic humans to complete her quest to step foot on Mars. That's the story. The story within the story is how much of your humanity do you have to sacrifice to achieve your dreams on the highest level. So that's kind of the human question we're putting in this, just absolutely over the top, ridiculous story about shooting vampires into space and seeing how it goes. Spoiler alert, it goes terribly. Yeah, and so we've got a couple different covers. Yeah, incredibly lucky with this. So this first cover, our standard cover, is from Fernando Pinto and Ellie Wright. We were talking about things gestating for a while. This cover idea of looking into an astronaut's helmet and seeing the vampire coming at them has been in my head for a while, and so to see how Fernando and Ellie brought it to life just made me so happy. And then because I'm an 80s comic book dork, we needed to do we needed to do the corner box with our characters. So I'm geekily excited about that. Um, and then yeah, if you go over to Vampires on Mars, you can check out some of the interior art from Fernando and Ellie, and you can pick up the vibe that we're going for. Fernando has an incredibly fast and funny and energetic style that I think pops on every moment, and he truly enjoyed kind of leaning into that manga inspired. He's been very clear to make sure that I never say it's manga; it is manga inspired, for just that energetic, over the top look that, again, when you call something Vampires on Mars, it kind of needs to have. Um, so yeah, so that's Fernando and Ellie's, and then I also got Alex Cormack, who is a Northeast comic creator. I've known him for years. He is so damn wonderful. And we've collaborated on a bunch of stuff. And when I tossed him out the idea of doing a variant cover, he came back with this one, which just I laughed so hard because it was so good. You know, if one image can wrap up the vibe that we're going for, this one did it. So this is one of our variants. And then Jacob Edgar, who, again, for everything that Twitter is and isn't, it has introduced me to so many incredibly talented people, and Jacob Edgar is one of them. And as I was hemming and hawing trying to figure out how I could work with him, Brian Michael Bendis decided he wanted to work with him. And it's like, oh well, there goes that shot. But I,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
I dropped. Yeah, oh well, good for Jacob. He deserves it. But I dropped him a line, and he was kind enough to find some room in his schedule, and so he put together this wonderfully batshit concept. And then because metal covers are cool, like I don't feel like I need to justify it. Metal covers are cool. I wanted to make metal covers. We're stripping all the trade dress off of Fernando and Ellie's cover, and so this is going to be the metal version. And I really think Ellie's colors are going to just pop on the metal. And the metal Jacob and Alex's, they're basically going to be print to order. So the only way you're going to be able to pick them up is through this campaign. And, you know, much like yourself, final days, you know, we got about 600 to go in 4 days. So it's doable. It'll be a lot of work. There'll be no days off.
No.
But yeah, thank you again so much for letting me crash your live stream. I'm really glad I got a chance to just hang and dive into your stuff more. I truly, I want you to know this, that you know, I am so thankful that comics, you know, let our paths cross. Your support and energy and friendship is been wonderful, and I really look forward to it continuing forever and ever. And anybody who knows me but doesn't know Melissa, please go check out Alchemist. Check out her other work. Go to that page. It's wonderful. It's magical. It's full of life. It's a ton of fun. I think you get to see a lot of MJ in those stories, and I think just listening to her talk about it tonight, you know, it's full of her passion, you know, both artistically. And then I'm so glad you talked about, you know, the Ottoman Empire inspiration of it to help kind of fill that out, you know. So yeah, I hope anybody's tuning in, thank you. I appreciate it. You know, this, again, very selfish. I just wanted to talk to MJ for a while. So I thank you for joining us. And yeah, if any of these books sound interesting, you will be doing our stress levels a ton of good if you check out the stuff. And if you can support, if you can retweet and post, that's invaluable as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you would like to add, Melissa?
Oh my God, George, you've rendered me a little speechless. I'm getting like, oh, because oh my gosh, when we first met, I'm like, George is so cool. There's no way I could ever approach him, but he's so cool. And then I think there was some conversation about Facebook ads. I'm like, George is the master. I'll just reach out to him. He can always just ignore me. And you got on the call with me anyway. And ever since then, it's been
Yep.
all awesomeness. And it's just been so cool getting to know you and following your creative journey, seeing all these cool things you make, from the comics and the music and the acoustic album that just came out, 8 years in the making, right? It was 8 years.
Yep.
And just the process behind that is so cool, and just all these cool creative ideas that you have that are so different from anything in my sphere. It's a breath of fresh air, and just the way you break down things and let us know in our circles that we're not crazy, and we are great, and we are doing amazing things. And sometimes you just need someone to remind you of that. So I'm going to remind you, George, that you're doing amazing things, and it is so nice to know you and to be on this comics journey side by side, walking our
Absolutely.
roads.
I think that's probably the most beautiful way to end all of this. And again, anybody watching, thank you for joining. And you know what? If there's an artist that is inspiring you, let them know.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at in my life. Like friends, artists, all of that. Like if I'm getting something from you, I want you to know that that's the royal you and the specific you. So yeah, let's just put more good vibes into the world.
Because we
And
honestly
especially
don't
for
know.
oh,
Because we
I was
honestly don't know, because we're just working in a vacuum, and we're like, I got more pages to write, and we forget, and then if someone comes and says, hey, I like your stuff, it's like, oh, well, thank you. Because we don't
Yep.
take that time.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to chatting with you at a minimum a couple weeks. But probably before that.
Yeah, I hope so. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Make sure to check out Vampires on Mars, because it is super cool. And we got to find out what happens with that taco bar, and if they get to Mars, both the vampires and the tacos. We got to find out. So go over and check it out. Please check out The Alchemist of Aurelia. We've got 8 more days to go. We're going till April 30th. George is going till this Friday at midnight. And at midnight, that campaign becomes a pumpkin, so you don't want to miss out.
Awesome. Good night, everybody. Good night, MJ.
Good night, George.
This is the fun part where I hit end stream and we have no idea how long it'll take to actually end.